What is up, Piss Flaps? JJ back here from Run Pure Bets with another free pick for it. This time it's going to be for college football on Friday, December the 3rd. Game is going to be played between the Utah Utes and the Oregon Ducks. Some folks might call this the PAC12 Championship. Current betting spread is Utah minus 2.5. Total 58. So, much like in the NFL last week, I only had a few live shows in CFB, no solo plays. But we return with a Friday breakdown here. Before I go into the pick, I wanted to break down how I see the Final Four projecting out based on potential of Saturday's results. It is clear cut that Georgia is in the BCS. It would take quite a bad upset for UGA to leave the number one spot. Even if Georgia loses to Bama, I'd leave them up at 1 if I'm the committee. Anyway, this Georgia team hasn't trailed in the second half all season. They've won every game by 17 plus, except for their first one versus Clemson. They have a historically good defense where Tennessee Volunteers are the only team all season to score 17 points, and they had a backdoor late touchdown in that one in garbage time. This UGA defense is literally as good as the LSU offense was a few years back with Burrow and all those NFL studs. This defense is just filled with NFL caliber talent. Anyway, yes, unless Bama rolls UGA, there's no reason UGA should move from the number one slot for the BCS. At number 2, Michigan, who does play Iowa this week in the Big Ten Championship off their nice upset win versus Ohio State. Look, Michigan wins, and they're the number 2 seed. It's really that simple. If they lose, some doors do open for others, though. If they lose a close game where it comes down to the wire and then Michigan loses late, I personally don't move Michigan out of the top 4. The resume is tremendous. Lone loss at Michigan State. Look, unless Iowa stomps them or beats them by double digits, or or Iowa takes control early and leads from there, I'm personally keeping Michigan in the BCS. Now, Cincinnati is the next team worth mentioning at 3 because look, if Bama loses, Cincy bumps up to 3. Cincy hosts Houston this week in the American, and look, if they win, they're in. It's that simple. I actually hate non-Power 5 schools who schedule shit at a conference. But look, the stars aligned for Cincy with all these other teams losing. A win keeps them in, but a loss is going to drop them to 11 or 12. They still should make a New Year's 6 bowl if they do lose. Look, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm hoping not to get dropped to 4, though, or stay at 4, I guess, depending what they come out with before this week, but it doesn't really matter. I'm hoping they're not 4, or at least if I'm Cincy, I'm hoping I'm not 4, because then, of course, you're going to get Georgia, and they'll likely be a near 3-touchdown underdog against them, which is just crazy for a BCS game. But look, I'd line it at 20.5 myself. Now, Alabama is a team I'll bring up next. Look, another team, pretty simple for them. They upset Georgia, and they're in. If they lose a close game to Georgia, this does get complicated, much like it does for Michigan, because Alabama's resume, it's not excellent, but they don't really have bad losses. I mean, they have one, but I mean, it's not an awful loss. And then, of course, if they were to lose to Georgia, that's not a bad loss. I'll tell you this, though. If I'm the committee right now, I'm not sure if any teams in the country can compete with Georgia. So if Bama plays them close and they lose a close game, whether it's a back and forth or whatnot, and Georgia wins by like 3 or 5 or 6, whatever, late, for me, if I'm the committee, I want to put Bama in. And even if both teams lost a close game, let's say Michigan lose a close game and Bama lose a close game to Georgia, I'd actually, believe it or not, I'd push Bama above Michigan, primarily because, look, Bama would have at that point proved they can hang with Georgia, which right now we're not sure if there's any teams that can hang with Georgia. There's also the element of the committee here who loves them some Alabama, and especially with no Clemson and likely no Ohio State in the BCS, expect them to do all they can to push Bama into the Final Four, regardless of outcome. Of course, Georgia State rolls them, they're out regardless. Regardless. Said it like 10 times. Oklahoma State is rooting for one of the chalk above them to lose, or Georgia to blow out Bama. Look, if Cincy or Michigan lose and OK State wins the Big 12 title, you have to bump them in. I mean, it's that simple. I'd also argue if Georgia blows out Bama, you have to slide OK State above them and in. Big 12's been shit all year, but Oklahoma State's been consistent. Tricky game for them versus Baylor, but they will need help even if they win. Certainly doable regardless. And look, if they happen to pound Baylor, it'll help their case as well. Notre Dame, an often darling of many to sneak into the BCS, at least this year. This team sucks this year, though, in my opinion, compared to other years. The Ian Book days had better rosters than this one. And those Notre Dame teams got destroyed in the BCS. They have 0 marquee wins this year. Yeah, 0. If you think Wisconsin was a big win, you're nuts. USC, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Florida State,
Stanford all had down years. I'm not discrediting Notre Dame's schedule coming into the year because it was a good schedule, but the reality is what it is. All those teams were poor this year, and this team literally has no big wins. They scored only 13 points against Cincinnati in a bad loss, where they even snuck a touchdown in late. They did like nothing for almost like the first 2.5 quarters. Add in the movement of Brian Kelly to LSU, and Notre Dame needs at least 2 teams to lose on Saturday for them to move into the conversation, in my opinion, if it even helps. Like I have Notre Dame as an underdog to every single team that I've mentioned prior, and this team I'm about to mention included. The Ohio State Buckeyes, they really fucked themselves with that Michigan loss. They're going to need a lot of help on Saturday. But let's not forget, much like Bama, how much the committee drools over this team. I'll say this, if the opportunity presents itself, the committee's going to put this team in. Now, contrary to Notre Dame, I have Ohio State favorite on a neutral field versus every team above mentioned except for Georgia. If Cincy and OK State lose and Bama upsets Georgia, there's a realistic scenario where 1, 2, 3, 4 are Georgia, Michigan, Bama, Ohio State. And think about that for a second. You get Georgia, Ohio State in the first round, and you get Michigan, Bama in the first round. Those are some pretty marquee matchups, right? Now, that 4th team in could be Notre Dame instead of the Buckeyes. But, God, as a 4th seed, Notre Dame's going to get pounded by Georgia. So put Ohio State in a warm weather game versus Georgia, a team that may be able to test this Georgia defense. Not saying they'd win, but especially if Alabama, in that scenario I just mentioned, especially if Alabama is able to upset Georgia with their offense, Ohio State's got a better offense than Bama. So I think all things considered, not saying Ohio State's going to get in, but if the committee has the opportunity with enough upsets, they will do what they can to sneak Ohio State in. And again, they're just going to have a better shot than a coachless Notre Dame. Feel free to drop your thoughts on how you see the BCS all playing out, as I'm always interested in what you guys think. But look, now let's talk on some Utah, Oregon, PAC12 Championship. Look, my Run Pure family knows just a few short weeks ago, I was on Utah -3 in a rout. One of the easiest bets we've had all year. But as we all know, it's a numbers game, and now this number's shifted a bit on us. My favorite look here is actually the Utah Utes team total. Under 29.5. I got this +100 at DK in New Jersey. One of the big reasons I bet Utah a few short weeks ago was because plenty of numbers said the line should have been past 5 in that game in Utah. A team that, by the way, didn't have a single loss at home all year. This one, though, gets played at a neutral in Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, and that game was 3, and now on a neutral it's 2.5. You can't underestimate the value of home field in college, but bigger than this game is the total is still the same at sub 58. Look, I watched the game the last time out, and Utah's 38-point outburst was more of a lack of Oregon's offense staying on the field versus the actual potency to Utah's offense piling up yards. Utah was a silly 8 for 11 on third downs. They even returned a punt for a touchdown as halftime expired. Utah's team total in that game was identical to what it is here. The difference is, of course, Utah and Oregon now have a lot of extra tape to sift through on each other for how that game went wrong. I do think you're going to get a better version of Oregon here, and anything better offensively will keep the ball further away from Utah. These two are relatively slugs in terms of pace, but again, very, very efficient offensively and very good defensively. The second half of their first game had a total of 6 possessions from both. 6. Both teams chew up clock and rarely go 3 and out. If Oregon struggles again, this will mean Utah has no reason to step on the gas. And we saw them step on the brakes last time out when they were rolling Oregon in the first half. If Oregon does find its offense, I'm still not convinced we're going to get another ceiling type game from this Utah offense on a per play basis. With limited plays, they put up solid numbers in that first game. Utah only punted twice all game against this Oregon defense, which is just wild. The biggest outlier in that game, aside from Utah's third down efficiency, was Utah's consistency on the ground. 50 carries for over 200 yards. It's a big issue that I expect Oregon to fix. I thought Utah's success would actually come through the air in the form of chunk plays, and that did, but they were much more efficient running the football than I expected. I'm going to chalk that up to an anomaly, as Oregon's one of the best teams in the country defending the run. And look, if Oregon can just plug that up, Utah's going to struggle to end those long drives that they had with touchdowns. Now, I can't bet Oregon here, as I faded them at a similar number just a few weeks back, but at this same team total for Utah at 30 on a neutral field is quite high, all things considered. I expect Oregon to show more improvement on offense this go around and keep the ball away from Utah a little more than they did the first go around. This Utah team, this didn't happen at all when these two first met. But being in Utah was the big issue there. Expect Oregon to convert a few more third downs, give themselves a few more third and shorts, and just keep the clock churning. I think Utah could definitely win again here. Could even win by double digits again here. But this number at sub 30 for their team total is just a few points too high. Now, also a lot for grabs here as the winner locks up a New Year's Six bowl game. Tight game for both, where both teams have better defenses than offenses and love to bleed clock on long sustained drives. First game played much like that, and I expect the same here, with more of a spark from Oregon's offense than the lifeless attempt they had a few weeks back. Their lack of offense truly handed Utah points. Now, so again, Utah's team total under 29.5. Got that plus 100 at DK in New Jersey. You might be able to sit on this and get 30.5. I don't think this is going to go to 31. 31 super key. So if it did get there, it's a shame, but I don't think it's going to get there. And 30 is not a super key number either. So I'm happy with 29.5. I know 30 is 3 touchdowns, 3 field goals, but at the plus 100 decent vig option, I like 29.5 under. Want to thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, thumbs up. Create some fake accounts more. Thumbs up. If you did not enjoy, I hope you fall into a well. As always, drop comments below your thoughts in the vid. Let me know who you like. There's another bowl game as well with UTSA and Western Kentucky. Should be a good one. We have so give me your thoughts on both games. We have content lined up all weekend on the channel. I'll be back live talking college football on Saturday. Print Factory with the DFS crew Wednesday night, running through bets and DFS as well, which is a free show on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. Also, I'll be back on the NFL show with Run Pure Sports, talking bets, DFS up to lock from 12 o'clock p.m. onward. We'll have more NBA content from Spread and Tyler. And look, head over to runpurebets.com, see what we're all about. As always, folks, be sure to gamble responsibly, stay safe, and I'll see you folks again on Saturday morning talking more college football.